السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. حياكم الله جميعا في لقاء اليوم. A career in consulting, what does it look like؟ معانا اليوم عبد الرحمن دسوقي، المهندس والمستشار، من خريجي جامعة البترول، تخصص هندسة نظم التحكم والقياس، تخرج في عام 2016. انضم إلى شركة BCG as a business analyst. حصل على الMBA من جامعة إنسياد من فرنسا. اليوم عبد الرحمن وكعادة أي خريج من خريجي جامعة البترول يعني عنده حنين لملاقاة شباب الجامعة، حتى يشاركهم من خبراته ويشاركهم من تجاربه، ويرجع شوي يعود بالزمن لجو الطلاب زي ما كان من قبل. فالله يعطيك العافية عبد الرحمن. اليوم راح نتكلم عن مشواره المهني في مجال الاستشارات، نتكلم عن خبراته في حصوله على شهادة الMBA، نتكلم عن يعني بعض الأشياء اللي ممكن تساعد أي شخص مهتم في مجال الاستشارات إنه يتعرف على هذا المجال أكثر. لو ما كان عنده صورة واضحة يكون عنده صورة واضحة أكثر. فحياك الله أخوي عبد الرحمن، نتشرف ونسعد فيك. تفضل.
الله يحييك عبد الله، شكرا اولا على المقدمه الجميله دي. انا I'm not sure if everyone speaks Arabic. I think everyone speaks English, صح ولا how does it work?
Sure.
So okay, I'll do a mix of يعني skimming through the names. I think everyone seems to be speaking Arabic, but I'll speak in English just in case. Just in case anyone does not speak Arabic. So أولا thank you Abdullah, and thank you to the consulting club. I was just telling him that when I was there was no consulting club whatsoever. Nobody knew what consulting was. So I really would have loved to have a consulting club and someone to tell me more about consulting. So I just wanted to take the chance to get back to the to the campus and connect to students more or less, even if it's non-physically. So if you Abdullah, if I can just start sharing the screen, and then we can
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, can you see the screen now?
Yes, it's clear.
Perfect. Okay, so thank you everyone for coming. I'm honestly really happy to be here, and I'm excited. Please, just two things before we start. One, please, if you have any questions, shoot, or either write them on the chat, or just unmute yourself and talk. It's a very informal session, so just please feel free to ask any questions that you might have, either through the chat or just unmute yourself and talk. That's first. The second is that I am here, I'm not representing anyone. I'm just here on behalf of myself, just giving my everything is just my personal opinion. It has nothing to do with BCG or INSEAD or KFUPM or whatsoever. Okay, so let's start. Let's just start by a very simple introduction. So my name is Abdurrahman Dessouqi. As Abdullah mentioned, I graduated from KFUPM in 2016. So I'm originally Egyptian. My parents moved to Saudi when I was 2. I grew up in Riyadh, lived most of my life there, and then so I went to Riyadh Salihin High School, basically all my life from Rawda until my high school. Then following that, I actually did a small stint in Alexandria University for a couple of months before I got admitted into KFUPM. And then I got admitted into KFUPM in early, the beginning of 2012. So I was in 2011. I started in 2012, And then I spent like 4 years there. So what happened? So I did my undergrad in KFUPM, and then towards the end, I joined BCG, and then after that, after a couple of years, I started my MBA at INSEAD, and I just finished the MBA this summer. So we'll talk about every one of them basically in a bit of detail. More focus on BCG and the INSEAD experience, and then please feel free to ask any questions. So what did I do in my undergrad? So I studied control and instrumentation systems engineering, which is more or less robotics and automation. For those of you who are in KFUPM, we're the sisters of industrial engineering. We're all under the same department. I lived in building 840, which was right next to the mall. That was basically the most exciting thing that happened during my 4 years at KFUPM, building the mall right next to me. So I can basically see the mall from my window. And when I started, I think they were still building it. And then 2 years into my undergrad, they finally finished it. I was in room 327. I still remember it very vividly. Then in my third year in KFUPM, I did Unilever launched what they called the Quest, which is a competition that focuses on solving business cases. And I participated, and then following that, I got an internship at Unilever in my third year. So I did a summer internship at Unilever. I did a few automation projects, worked with another KFUPM grad, and it was a great experience, but it was only for a couple of months. Now, let me give you just a bit of pictures about my life at KFUPM. So in the middle here, you can see that was basically my room. So this is me basically trying to الحنين للجامعة and KFUPM and being a student again. So this is my room. This is me in the graduation. And then on the left, this was my torturing senior project. It took hours to spend in the lab. And it was a really, really quite a depressing lab at the ground floor of building 23, if I'm not mistaken. And it took us really, really long time to make it actually work. So that's why I have this picture here. Now, coming to the important point, which is how did I know about consulting and BCG in general? And then how did I transition into consulting? So what happened is that, very simply, at the end of my fourth year, so my last year as a senior in KFUPM, BCG came and did a presentation. And then during that presentation, they just gave an introduction about what is consulting, what is BCG, what do they do. And for me, that seemed like a very interesting, that seemed to be a very interesting space for a couple of reasons. Number one, you get to, you are a generalist, so you don't really like specialize in one thing or the other. You have a broad range of topics that you work on, and you really learn a lot. Number two, you deal with people a lot, so you interact with a lot of people. You present, you convince, you talk, you discuss. And third, the topics seem to be very interesting. They range from like you can literally cover every topic that is out there. So for those reasons, I decided, okay, why not giving it a try? Even though I was kind of determined to actually go and pursue my, let's say, my master's and PhD, so go continue in academics. And what happened is I applied, so I found out that you actually really need a lot of preparation and a lot of work, and I had around like 3, 4, 5 weeks to prepare. I did not know anyone in the industry, but I did manage. So I managed to prepare, went for interviews, they went well, and then I got the offer, and I ended up accepting it. And so this is in short the story of how I got into BCG. Now, before I go into that, let me just tell you a quick introduction about maybe the industry in general for people that are not very familiar with it, and a second about BCG. So what is management consulting? Management consulting is simply companies or governments have projects or problems or, let's say, things that they cannot really, let's say, implement or think about or find a solution for, or things that you want, problems that you want to tackle, or strategic issues that they don't have the time to think about. And for that, they come to specialized companies that provide them with solutions, with packages, they talk to the CEOs, to the CFOs, to the ministers, and they tell them, they try to advise them on the best way forward on these topics. So this is, in a nutshell, what management consulting is. Now there are three like big companies that are mainly, so there's McKinsey, BCG, and Bain. And BCG has an office has offices in Dubai, in Riyadh, and in Doha, and in Beirut. And the Riyadh office has been expanding quite a lot in the past couple of years. So now, about forget about the industry, and now we're going to like my experience. So what happened is, so I worked so before BCG, basically my only professional experience was working as a maintenance like planner, like an automation engineer at Unilever. And all the work was like very engineering. I really liked engineering. I'm a nerd. I really like all that stuff. So I then the move from engineering to consulting was quite a shift, because as I mentioned before, consulting is not very specific. It's very heavy, like people focused. So you talk to a lot of people. You have to convince people about things. You need to project confidence. You need to convince people basically that you know what you're talking about, and that this topic is something that you really know a lot about, and then you explain the solution or whatever rationale that you came up with, and the hard work that you've done. Now, it's very engineering is very, let's say, very numbers driven, very specific. You know, you talk about centimeters and small and very small details. Consulting is still data driven for sure. However, in engineering, it's very hard to spin a story about something other than consulting. So in consulting, you can have the same data set, but you spin a story around very different things. And this is one of the key learnings that I had from consulting. Basically, is that it doesn't really matter what sets of data that you have or what is in front of you. What is most important is if you can spin a good story and convince the right stakeholders that this is the right thing to do. This is how it's. This is the most important thing. If you're talking about senior level like directors, CEOs, CFOs, or ministers, you need to convince them that this is based on the data that we have, that this is the right solution for this specific type of problem. And this is one of the key learnings that I had. Now, the type of project I did spent 3 years at BCG. I joined in September 2016, and I left around July 2019. And I did many types of projects. So the topics include, let's say, labor market, sports, entertainment. So labor market, the sports, entertainment, real estate development, traffic safety, like so many different topics that you can see that are not really related to each other. However, most of the projects I did were in the public sector, domain. And they were quite different in nature. There are projects that were 2-3 weeks long. There were projects that were 6 months, 1 year. And it's really all like I basically have experienced so many like different types of projects that are not that really are not similar in any way other than that they are like they are in the domain of the public sector. Now, in terms like at least in my opinion, in order to succeed, one of like the most important like one of the most important skills are like number one is projecting confidence. So you need to project that you actually that you're first that you're confident about what you're talking about and what you're saying, and that you actually know what you're talking about. So that's number one. Number two is that the structured thinking and structured communication. So we are not experts in the fields, or at least as when you join a company like BCG at the beginning, as a generalist, you're not really an expert in the field where you go to the client. Imagine that you're going to a CEO or a CFO. They have 25, 30 years of experience in their field, and you're just a fresh grad who doesn't really know much about the topic. So what do you bring to the table? This is what you bring to the table. You bring the structured thinking and structured analysis, looking at the problem. You put it in clear buckets to, you know, structure the thinking of the client and make the project easily digestible and the problem easily digestible into small chunks of easily tackleable areas. So this is one of the most important elements of being a good consultant, which is having the structured thinking and structured communication. Now, third is more or less time management and knowing how to handle your time well, because consulting is a very demanding job. There's a lot that needs to be done in a very short period of time. Expectations are very high, so you need to know how to manage your time well, and how to defend your time as well. How to make certain periods of time that is only for you, or that you can actually talk and say that, okay, in these periods of time I'll do this and this, and then I will stop. So these, like in my opinion, these three things are the three most important skills that you need to have in order to succeed in a career like consulting. In terms of key challenges, so that there's a huge or a very steep learning curve. So at the very beginning, you feel that because you're not used to all of this. So you join and then you really don't know how to, it's overwhelming, the amount of stuff that you need to do, the amount of people that you need to talk to, the amount of just things that are around you that are new. And it's an overwhelming feeling that you just need to try to overcome by knowing that at the end, if you just structure things and put them in proper buckets, everything is going to be easily digestible. Now comes to the fun part, which is a few stories. I think I have maybe two or three. Let's see where that goes. So number one, it was actually my third week in BCG, and I had to present to a deputy minister in one of the largest ministries in Saudi. And it was my third week. I was like, I know nothing about this topic. Like, how am I supposed to be presenting to a deputy minister? However, what happens is that expectations are high from you. However, the team is actually quite supportive, and they try to give you all the let's say the support that you need in order to succeed. At the same time, you also have all the resources that can make you kind of an expert in the topic that you're going to talk in. So with the senior people on your team, with all the resources, the experts, the research projects, all the analysis, or the data that you have, you become kind of a small expert in the area that you're talking to, so that you can present properly. So I was super scared. Went in, it was my third week, and then like it at least what I think is that it went well, and And it was actually a really interesting experience about how in just a very short span of time you learn quite a lot. So that's one. Two, I think one of my favorite stories is that once we were also, so we were working in a project that was very hectic. It was quite busy. A lot of like pop-up meetings and things like that. So it was like structured like there's a huge space that we're sitting in, and then there is a small areas, partitions where everyone is sitting, and someone popped by and said, oh, okay, the vice minister is coming in 5 minutes, and we need to present. And then we're like, okay. So we sat together to see, okay, what's the story that we're gonna tell, which bits and pieces are gonna be there. And they say, oh, and you actually need to present in Arabic. And no one spoke Arabic on the team except for me. So at the end, I had to present something that we did. Like the material was there, obviously, but we just had to put it together in the past like 5 minutes before the meeting. And then that was a very interesting presentation. So more or less, like the experience at BCG is quite like you have a really steep learning curve. The projects are of really different nature, different topics. You change the team quite often. You don't have one manager that sticks with you for the whole time. You keep changing managers, you keep changing team members, which leads me to the next point, which is it's actually a lot of fun because you get to know a lot of people. You get to make a lot of friends. You get to travel quite often, and which leads me, let me put to the next story. So the picture on the most left is when we had. So I joined BCG as a business analyst, and as you may know, it's so. Let me actually go back and maybe try to explain it a bit for people that don't know. So BCG typically only takes people from, let's say, a certain school in the Middle East, which is the American University in Beirut. However, in 2016, they launched a program, which is called the Business Analyst Program, which aims to hire people from local universities in the region, including KFUPM. So that was the first year of the program. So we were the first batch. So the program is structured around that you go for 1 year, then once you're done, you either get a full-time offer or you don't. So the picture on the most left was basically our graduation from that program. There's so many people from KFUPM actually in that picture. You can see, I'm not sure if you know them or not, but there's Sultan Smihin on the left, Othman, Yusuf, Abdurrahman, Ahmad. So there are quite a few people that are from KFUPM. The picture on the bottom right corner is me with my manager and Abdurrahman Habibi, who's also a KFUPM grad. That was taken in Mauritius. So we basically we took a trip to Mauritius, the three of us, on a weekend, and it was actually super fun. Now the bigger picture here is it was in a restaurant in Riyadh right before I left to INSEAD, and just like all the people are basically people that I've met at BCG, and you can see also a lot of KFUPM people in the picture. So that was like my goodbye dinner before I left to INSEAD. So it's not just hard work. There's also a lot of fun. You get to meet a lot of really interesting people, and you make lifelong friends. So in a nutshell, this is BCG. We can, of course, we can go into more detail about preparation and I don't know what, but please, if you have anything about that, just send a question and we can talk about it in detail, because I'm not sure what would be the interest of the audience at this point. Okay, so after BCG, towards the end of BCG, basically, they had the option of doing an MBA. And doing an MBA is like I had it on my mind for quite a while, and then I chose INSEAD. But before I do, let me show you this fun picture. So on the left is our formal class picture, which is basically our whole class, which is in Fontainebleau, France. And then on the right is what we call Dash Day at INSEAD, which is a day where you basically attend class wearing costumes, and you can see the people. Everyone is in costumes. It was actually raining, so it was quite a terrible weather, but it was a lot of fun. Now, on a more serious note, why an MBA, or what does an MBA basically add to you? From my at least from my experience, I think the biggest thing that you get from an MBA is the network. You get to see so many people, first from across everywhere across the world, and second, from very different industries. And at my time at BCG, I did meet a lot of people from very different countries of the world. However, I did not get the chance to meet a lot of people from different backgrounds. So at INSEAD, I met people from, let's say, investment banking, from private equity, from finance, from pharmaceuticals, from healthcare, from public sector, more or less from every industry that's out there. And you can understand, or you can at least get an insight on the way they think about things, the way they have experienced things in the past. How do they approach problems? And you get that during the discussions in class, during your discussions with your classmates, and you connect with them. And then once you end your experience, you have an international network that is massive across different industries, different geographies, that you can simply use later in any, let's say, if you want to start a business, or if you want to switch industries, or if you want to switch geography, or if you just find yourself in Rome and you don't have a place to stay and you just want to ping someone and see if they have an available space. So for me, that was honestly, this was one of the biggest takeaways of the MBA, one of the biggest things that I feel like is really, really interesting. Now, of course, I'm an engineer, so I did not really study a lot of finance. I didn't really study a lot of management. So from a technical point of view, of course, I gained a lot of knowledge when it comes to finance, when it comes to management in general. I learned a lot about industries that I didn't know even existed, or I know very little about, and I found that it's actually quite interesting to be there. Now, if I take a step back and see why I chose INSEAD in the first place, so there were basically many options for MBA, and INSEAD offered mainly two things. One is that it was a shorter program, so it's 1 year versus 2 years in other business schools. And second, it was across Europe and Singapore. So I get the chance to live in Europe. I get the chance to live in Singapore, which I did. So I started my INSEAD in around August. I stayed in France for around 4 months, and then from January until May, I was in Singapore, and then I came back to France in May. And I got to travel around Europe. I got to see some things, and like I got to travel around Southeast Asia. Got to see Singapore, live in Singapore, and to be honest, that was like very fun, first of all, and second, quite enlightening when you meet a lot of people and just see the way they think about the world and make new friends. So I think that would summarize my like key learnings and why an MBA and why INSEAD. Now it's time for like just a few stories from my INSEAD experience. So one that I really like, one that I really like the most. So there is this course basically about strategy at INSEAD, and there was one day where it's called Master Strategy Day. What happens is that they bring a company, and you will need in 24 hours. You basically need to present a solution to. It's basically a full-fledged strategy to that company, to the actual CEO and CFO and directors of that company, and you present in front of everyone, and then the best selected teams compete, and then of course there is a winner. And the experience is quite interesting, because you basically get one day where you have to sit with your team. You get really put like there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure on you, and so you learn a lot. You get to develop the strategy. You get to develop the communication material. You get to develop everything where you need to talk to the CEO or the CFO or directors. And you have a lot of fun at the same time. You bond a lot with your team, and then at the end of the experience, there's like a big celebration where everyone is just like enjoying themselves, and we're celebrating the winning teams, and so that's one day that was. Imagine people from every industry, from all different geographies, with a lot of different ideas presented to the directors and the decision makers, and then you get to see all of that, and then you get to celebrate it, after. So I think that was definitely one very interesting experience that I had at INSEAD. Now, in terms of what's next. So I joined INSEAD, and I'll be going back to BCG sometime near in the future. Currently, I'm just doing a few projects and internships, and there are a lot of industries that I actually got to know more about during my time at INSEAD. For example, private equity and the startup and the tech scene, which is very, very interesting, which hopefully I think is gonna be something that I can maybe go into later. I'm honestly still not sure what would be what the future holds, and for let's say the long term. But in any case, I would love to be in a place that is just that I'll try to surround myself with people that are fun, exciting to work with, and interesting, in a nutshell. Before I bore you to death, let me just leave you with three things. One is keep growing your network. Never underestimate how important the network is. As I mentioned before, you can use your network for basically more or less everything. And for example, some of you messaged me on LinkedIn before this meeting, and they were like, "I were looking forward to meeting you and hearing from you, etc." Which it does leave an impression. So try to always connect in whatever opportunity that you can with whoever is there. You never know what the future holds. Number two, always be curious. So always just be curious to learn more about things that you don't know. Try to be, let's say, very proactive in the way that you approach learning about things. And always just be curious about the world. Be curious about getting more knowledge. Be curious about reading more books. Be curious about doing more sports. Be curious about finding something that you don't know about yourself. So that's something that's always been I feel like it's driving me, and I feel like it's quite important. And third is don't forget to have fun. Of course, you always have to. Like life is short, so make sure that you make time to enjoy and have a good life in a nutshell. So from my side, this is it. We can go to the Q&A. I am not sure if I can see the questions on the chat. Let me try to see if there are any. Yes. Okay. So there are some. Okay. So there's a question from Ahmed. Did your major affect the shift from an engineer to a consultant? And there is another question that's basically on a similar note, which is how did you handle the shift and what helped you? So from a major perspective, I think engineering in general, yes. Control systems, maybe no. Engineering, as in that I think engineering gives you a good background about thinking structurally about things and being very like numbers driven and data driven in general. However, control systems specifically, not really. I don't think that's really like it did not really have let's say a different. I thoroughly enjoyed studying it, and I'm a robotics geek. I really like I was very happy studying it. However, I didn't end up working in it, unfortunately. In terms of the shift, as I mentioned before, basically handling it was quite. So I did not have an extensive engineering experience before I joined BCG. I had just a little bit, but it's completely different. The experience is definitely completely different. In engineering, you have a very specific task with very specific, let's say, numbers and data that is like quite. The problem is very specific. In consulting, problems can be quite generic, and then you will need to be creative in the way that you approach them. The way that you handle them, or at least the way that I did, and what helped me is just structured thinking and structured communication. You try to bucket things into smaller pieces that you can easily analyze and look for, and then and that makes it so much easier. Now, the next question from Abdul Majid is, do you recommend MBA ASAP after graduating, or work for your MBA? If I understood correctly, so I think a good MBA would never, like you cannot do it right out, like requires a lot of work experience. So first of all, if you want to do an MBA, then definitely do it in one of the, let's say, top 10 business schools. And it definitely requires some work experience before going there. Okay. Do you think only the best in school can get into consulting? Not necessarily. No. I think in general, consulting is actually one of the least industries that look for GPAs in general. However, they do, like, there's a preference, like they do prefer to have someone who has, like, let's say, strong GPA track record. However, it's not a requirement at all, and it all depends on the let's say, like the interviews and the coffee chats and the way that you like the impression that you leave with the interviewer. Are there specific majors? Absolutely not. I had people that studied before like fine arts and like philosophy. So they're all like it really does not affect the decision whatsoever. How can I present myself to a consulting company, or how can I write my CV to be presentable? So there, like, this is a bit of a longer session, but simply a CV just need to be very straight to the point, grammatically correct, structured. There are many resources out there that you can use that can make improve your CV. But in a nutshell, it just needs to be very structured, straight to the point, parallelism in all the points, highlights your work experience. You don't have work experience, highlights why you think you are a good fit like for the company. It just explains what you have done so far and that you have done it well, more or less. I'm afraid like it would take very long to answer the question, and we have very limited time. So I'm just wary of that. So this is the short version of the answer. Happy to provide more detail. About my 5 weeks preparation before joining BCG. So from my side, what I did is I used a lot of Victor Chin material. So he has a lot of like he had videos on explaining first the concept of all of this, like consulting and case prep and all that stuff. And then after Victor Chin, I tried to just practice cases with anyone that I can find. And there is, I think, Case in Point is also a good resource, especially when it comes to market sizing. Okay, Ali had the same question. Then, are you going to continue at BCG with your same role? No. So basically, post MBA, you get promoted to a consultant. So I'll be a consultant with BCG after my MBA. What's the difference between the environment, lifestyle, and life balance between Unilever and BCG? That's a very good question. So I of course, it's a bit different when I was in Unilever and at BCG. So in Unilever, it was just 2 months, like a summer internship. But the type of work that you do is very different. In Unilever, I was working in a factory. So I was in a factory 8 hours a day or even more. At BCG, you work at the client or at the office. So that's completely different. Working as an engineer, of course, you get your hands dirty. I was working with the technicians on the production lines, analyzing and looking. So there are like similarities on what you do. However, I would say that the experience is like the lifestyle is very different. And when it comes to like let's say hours, I would say consulting is a little bit more hours than Unilever for sure. What else? Like in Unilever, you have the only, or like in other companies, you have one manager, and you stick with them. In BCG, it's always like changing, always different. I think that would be my, like, let's say, small answer to this. Do you think holding a Master of Public Policy may lower my chances in consulting? No, actually, absolutely the opposite. I think an MPP would be very relevant, especially that consulting in the region has a lot of public sector clients. What are the differences between engineering and consulting, compensation, workload, etc.? So we've already touched upon this. I cannot go into compensation, unfortunately. Do referrals make a huge difference when it comes to applying for consulting firms, or do you have a chance with a plain vanilla application? No, you definitely have a chance with a plain vanilla application. If you have your CV right and the cover letter right, then for sure you have a chance at getting an interview. Typically, I'm not sure if you are from KFUPM or not, but they do coffee chats, and coffee chats are basically a group of. So let me maybe try to explain the recruiting process a bit if someone is not familiar with it. So usually there is a presentation, and then usually there is a presentation, and then there's a coffee chat which you apply to, and then this coffee chat is basically a group of people that are sitting with 1 or 2 consultants from BCG, and you just simply talk and introduce yourself, and then have a conversation. Following the coffee chat, there comes interviews. There are usually 2 sets of two sets of interviews. Each set is 2 interviews, so 4 in total. Once you finish one, you join the other, and more or less that's it. So this is the process. Could you please tell us what are the main differences between financial, operational, and managerial consulting companies? I mean, in terms of their nature, higher salary, required skill, frequent travel if needed, client nature, and those stuff. To be honest, I don't know much about the other companies. What I can tell you is about management consulting. You travel often pre-COVID, obviously. I would say required skills are quite different if you're working on, I don't know, let's say in a company that has a focus on auditing or like financial auditing or in operations or something. Then the type of project that you do, the type of stakeholders that you handle are quite different than the ones that you do in management consulting. But in most of those companies you work, like you have a very heavy client interaction, so that's very common across them, and you simply work on projects with clients, and that's what the most common thing across them. But other than that, I think the type of work is quite different. What are the business schools that you have the option to go to as a BCGer? So simply, basically, like you apply to the business schools, and you have to have they have to be one of the top 10 business schools like in the world. And there's a list that just the BCG has, and then you apply, and then you get admitted, and then you go in. Did your business analysis experience help in your consulting? I'm not sure what that question exactly means, but simply my engineering experience definitely like helped, not in a sense of knowledge, but more in a how you think and analyze and look at things. So I think from that perspective, it helped me, but other than that, not really. Is it easy to get a full-time offer after a business analyst program? To be honest, even just doing 1 year is honestly an amazing experience. But you can definitely, if you did well, definitely you can get into BCG. I don't think it's really I don't think it is like extremely difficult or anything. And like if you did well, you like the best thing about the 1 year is that you can also test whether you liked it or not, because like it really depends on the person, whether they like the space or they like the company, they like the consulting in general, the industry. So it's a really good time to like to see if you actually like them, and then I'm guessing like if you did well, then most likely you have a good chance. I read somewhere that BCG has an upper-out policy with their employees. Is it still the case now? How beneficial it is? So every consulting company has an upper-out policy. It's not just BCG. For those who are not familiar with it, an upper-out policy is that each position has a certain, like, let's say, time limit. So for example, as an associate, you have like 3 years, and then after those 3 years, you either get promoted, which is like you get sponsored for an MBA, or you leave. I think it's quite interesting from a sense that it pushes people to perform. At the same time, it's not really boring that you go and stay in the same position for, I don't know, 15, 20 years and you don't really do anything. At the same time, if you do decide to leave, there's a lot of like career services that BCG can offer. So they offer you positions with like they try to help you with the clients. They try to help you with their network. Try to help you with BCG, with the ex-BCGers that have companies. So basically, once you are a BCGer, like you're always a BCGer, as they say, and they always help you once if you decided to leave at some point. I'm not sure what the BCG internship program. Like, to be honest, I'm not in recruiting, so I'm not really sure about that. I think I've covered all the questions, unless someone else has something else. Feel free to also speak. I feel like I've been talking to myself for quite a while, so it would be nice to hear some voices. If anyone has a question, please shout out. Otherwise, I hope that you learned something. I hope this was interesting, and For those of you who would like, I'll be happy. Like if you'd like to get in contact with me, just find me on LinkedIn or anywhere for sure. I'll be happy to connect and happy to help. And thank you,
Yes,
Abdullah, for
I
having
have
me
a
again.
question for you, Alab.
Yeah, go ahead.
What does the working hour look like in consulting company?
So it's a tricky question. So basically, I would say, generally speaking, working in consulting, you would expect to have more, like let's say, more working hours than usual. However, it is a bit of a different type of experience. So you're sitting with your team, you have your own, like it's very flexible. It's a very flexible, and it really depends, and it depends a lot on you. For example, some people really prefer to be working for a bit and then go work out and then come back, or some people prefer to be working from the client for most of the time and then go somewhere and then come back. So I would say that working hours are quite like they're quite, I would say, a bit higher than usual. If like I can give an average, I would say maybe typically 10 to 9 or 9 to 9 or something of that sort. But there were weeks where I would finish at 4. There were weeks that I would finish at 6. There were weeks that I would finish at like 12 a.m. So it really depends. I think also Abdurrahman has a question, if I'm not mistaken. Please go ahead.
Yes. Thank you for everything that you presented today. It was really helpful. I'm just, if time allows, can you just elaborate more on the CV question?
On the
If
CV
time
question?
allows. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just simply try to give concrete advice. One, try to look for a lot of there's a lot of resources online. So try to look online for resources that help with how to structure your CV. How does a good CV look like? Send me a LinkedIn invite. I'll send you my CV if you'd like. And simply, you just need to be clear in shaping your experience. Put yourself in the shoes of the other person who's reading it, and try to see what questions they might have and try to answer it in the CV. Try to present yourself and basically in the best light. And happily, if you want, I'll be happy to send you your CV if you'd like. Just connect.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I will send you an invite, inshallah.
You're most welcome.
Hello, Abdurrahman.
Hello, Sahla. I'm not sure who's speaking though.
Okay, I'll go forward. So I'm not sure if you answered this question or addressed it like at the beginning of this session, but I'm wondering, how do you see the volume of consulting project in Saudi right now? Is it like growing? Is it decreasing? And how do you see the consulting career moving forward? I know that it's like, I think like between 2016, 17, 18 was like kind of booming, but I'm not sure about these days. This is the first question. The second question is most of the project like focused on like the Saudi market, or sometimes it is covering the GCC market as well?
Okay, so very quickly on the first question. So definitely, you're absolutely right. 2016 to 2019 was like a huge, like there was massive growth. However, that did not like, let's say, slow down significantly. So COVID, of course, has an impact on the whole economy of the whole region. So for sure, there is a bit of a slowdown. However, there like like I don't really know like exactly in sizes how much were the projects, but for sure there's still, the market is still strong, and there's quite a lot of projects out there. On the second question, what was the second question?
It's like
about?
the market you're covering.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely there's a lot of projects in Saudi. However, there are quite a few projects in the UAE. There are projects in Kuwait and Bahrain. There are some projects in Egypt, And so like, I would say, yes, there's definitely a lot of projects in Saudi, but there's definitely also other projects in different countries. At the same time, you can also do, in most of the companies, you can do cross-office staffing, where you go to another office and you work for them, basically. And so you can work in Australia, in the US, in Europe, or wherever you would like, and then you can work on projects there.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks.
You're most welcome.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Abdurrahman, for your talk. It was really informative. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I have a question regarding the case interview preparation. You could like mention or illustrate, like say, top 3 or top 5 resources which you think the most beneficial, or you can start with like the starting point.
Yeah. So it's a good question. I think so. From my side, what I mentioned. So Victor Chin is very helpful. So he has the videos that are, if you don't know anything about case prep, Victor Chin has videos on YouTube that are free. That are like it gives a very good introduction about the concept. That's number one. Number two, Victor Chin also has a website that has a lot of paid and unpaid material that is quite interesting. One of them particularly is you listen to cases being solved, and then it gets like at least I found it very, very useful. And then Case in Point, it's a book, and it's also quite interesting. They have like a good let's say like material on the topic, and they have a good market sizing chapter. I hope that's helpful.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Muhammad, yes, please.
Thanks, Abdurrahman, for such an inspiring session and for all helpful comments. Just would like to elaborate more on one dimension regarding the difference in the culture and the mindset, business understanding between the GCC, while you are experienced with the BCG, and with your internship in Europe. What's the main big difference in the dimension, and how can someone prepare himself or herself to be ready to dig deep or to work in such environment, or in such in Europe region specifically?
That's a very interesting question. So I think in general it's like, if, for example, if you take a few years back and you look at how different it was, I would say it was massively different. However, I would say now it's really kind of quite close. I worked with like when I worked in BCG in the Middle East, I worked with a lot of like, also my experience is a bit biased because I worked with a lot of people that are not from the region. But I would say that it's really interesting to see even the different cultures within every, like even in Europe, for example. Like working in France is very, very different from working in Germany or working in Italy, for example. So I would say the one thing that I would say is really helpful is to understand, try to understand a bit more the culture and let's say how people operate more or less in the different countries, or in the other country that you're going to talk to. And if it's in Europe, then definitely try to be in that specific country, because Europe is like it's a huge market, and there's like it can be very different across different countries, like the way that their habits, the way they work, even working hours, like how they do things in general is very, very different. Like France is completely different than Germany, for example. So I would say that's the one thing that would be very helpful.
Thanks, Abdurrahman. That mean, for example, in France, they are more really interested about the process rather than like action or results driven, other than the German or GCC, or what's the major the major issue the big difference, for example, in France rather than Germany?
Yeah, for example, in France, I was very surprised when I came here that people simply are very, like, their culture is just very different. What they do is that like they take very long lunch breaks, for example. They're not they really value like their lifestyle. They're very protective of their let's say like culture and traditions. They feel very strongly about it. They're not very, let's say, open to like new. They're very traditional in the way they think. They're not very open to like to, let's say, like outside ideas. They appreciate if people understand more. Like they really appreciate if you speak French, for example, and they really don't like you if you don't speak French. So all those things, like all the like very little things, are not really like, it's not that they're very like, I don't know, process driven or results driven, or just more about the intricacies of the culture itself.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, Abdullah, you had a question, so maybe one last one.
طيب أول شيء thank you very much عبد الرحمن for your invaluable insight today in this session. I have a question. Maybe we can end up with this question.
Yeah.
If there is no question from the side of the audience. Yeah. What is the duties of business analyst? I mean, if the project manager receive the project and start to create the group, what is your duties in this project as a business analyst?
That's a great question. So the way it works in consulting is basically, let's say you have clients that have projects. They send like a request for proposal, and then companies build proposals, which is basically an explanation of how are we going to approach this project. And then they build the teams, which consist of usually a partner or two, depending on, or even more, depending on the project. And then they have a principal who's someone who manages more than one team. And then there's a manager that only manages this team, so he manages only this project. And then a mix of senior and junior people. And these senior and junior people, they are like the consulting staff. Some of them are business analysts, some of them are associates, some of them are consultants. And these are basically the working muscle like of the team. Now, what happens is that you have, like, you grow your responsibility with time, as in any other company. However, it is very, very fluid. It is like basically your duties or what you're supposed to do is a very, very fluid. It really depends on the project. So simply, like, what happens is that, let's say the project manager structures the project around, let's say, 5 key elements or big modules that need to be done. Let's say you're doing a strategy for a big company, okay? And then to do the strategy, you need to look at many different elements. For example, one is you look at let's say the market, you look at the competitive landscape, and then from a market perspective, you look at like demand and supply, and is the market growing? Then from a competitive landscape, you look at other competitors, and is there someone coming? How are the barriers of entry? Blah 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 blah. Right. So you need to look at all these different, let's say, modules. What happens is, if you're senior enough, you typically take one of those and you're responsible for it from start to end. As a business analyst, you typically work with someone on one of those modules. And if your question was more about what do you do like day-to-day life, so you simply just talk to people, you research, you do some research, or you make people do research for you, and then you try to gather all this data and insights and talk to people and everything, all what you've gathered, and try to put it in a coherent recommendation of whatever the subsection that you're responsible for. And then with growing responsibility, like the more time you have, the bigger the pie that you get out of the project, and then of course the more autonomy you get. basically at the end, you just, okay, you need to do this, just go figure it out and come back and tell me how we're supposed to do it. Like that at some point it comes to that. I hope that was clear.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Abdurrahman. And thanks for the audience, the participants who share us their own time to be there, to be here, and be with us, basically. Thank you very much, and see you soon, inshallah. Thank you,
Shukran, Abdullah, and thank you to everyone. I hope this was helpful, and all the best.